Hey friends. I just had a very cool session with a student who I did a post a couple weeks ago. I called it collaborative mentorship. And it's a thing. And in some ways, most I think teachers would acknowledge, in some ways all mentorship is collaborative. You have to be in collaboration with the student, with the person, in order for a real transmission to take place. But there's also a kind of what I would still call mentorship, which is more it's like you're closer together. The teacher and the student are actually closer together. The teacher is still leading, or else they're not the mentor, but you're actually kind of working together on something, and both of you might be exercising your full skill set. In other words, the teacher doesn't have all the answers. There's some ways in which when I'm in teaching mode with a piano student, or even with a creative student in some ways, I sort of expect myself not to have all the answers, but to be able to shed light on the situation and to be able to make sense of things for the student, to help them see it a new way. Maybe I have the answer. If it's something technical on the piano, or something theoretical, or if it's something, a piece I know well, and I can give them input that is going to make it easier and better for them, then I'm offering the answer. But in collaborative mentorship, I'm not really offering the answer. I'm offering what I have. And what I have is likely based on more experience than the student has. But ultimately, that does not mean that what I have is right, or that my idea is going to be I don't have the answers in the same way that I do in a teaching situation. So it's something that I've observed in a handful of situations over the years, where I've felt like, okay, this particular student relationship is really more about collaboration and kind of leadership and collaboration than it is about teaching something. And today was one of those days. I was working with someone and we were writing a song. And the song, it's something that came out of the student. Student provided some melodies, some thematic ideas, just some real starting points. And I took them and harmonized the melody, figured out, tweaked the melody a little bit, made some adjustments here and there for sort of like cornering and for structure. But I didn't do a lot. I mostly took what I was given, and then we started working on lyrics, and we got a couple verses of lyrics out there, and I heard what the student was bringing, and I kind of responded to that. It provoked stuff in me. It was just, at that point, I'm just songwriting. Like, I'm just doing what I do. It's just I'm doing it in collaboration with someone who's also kind of like learning this from me and working as a co-creator with me, and who's tapping into my skill set as a musician. And we had a blast. We had something really kind of, we've now been at it, I think, about maybe 4 weeks, 4 or 5 sessions we've done. And it keeps building a little each time. Today we found a new section, and we also found some lyrical material that started to feel like, okay, this is feet are on the ground. This is starting to plant into the ground in a way that it actually looks like it can stand up. And as we were about to be finished, we got to chatting about, I had been doing this thing almost inadvertently the first time and then consciously after that, where I resolved at the end of the piece to a major chord, even though the entire piece is in minor. And it's a song about sort of missed connections, people not quite managing to connect, and the pain of that, the feeling that something is not lining up, even though both people maybe desperately want to connect, they're having trouble doing so. And and then I was just intuitively adding this major resolution at the end, major key resolution. And we got to talking, and I could tell as I was, right after I finished and right after I was kind of just settling back, I did a recording of just the piano part to send. Right as I was finishing, I was watching the student, like, clearly furiously writing, taking notes, and then we started looking at what the ending is about. And the idea of divinity came out as the common reference point for any two people, but in this case, these two people who seem unable to meet and who seem incapable of the whole one of the themes of the piece is that they're kind of trapped in past conceptions of themselves and preconceptions of other people. So it's like the pain of being in a pattern where maybe you can even kind of see the pattern from time to time, but it still has a hold of you enough that you can't really quite see it. You can't get out of it. And so as we got to the end, we started to think, this idea came out about a divine reference point, a common reference point in the absolute. And it was like it cracked the whole thing open. It cracked the whole thing wide open. It was like, oh, of course, that's where this is going. I became kind of surprised that I hadn't seen that I hadn't, it's one of those things where, this is the thing about creative work, when we realize that moment of realization that it's source, it's the absolute, it's God, whatever word we want to use to describe the energy that's way beyond us and that we can't understand, but that does channel into us and funnel into our lives sometimes in very specific and concrete ways. It always comes down to that. It always comes down to our relationship to that. And if we are having trouble in a personal relationship, it always comes down to some form of disconnection or obstructed connection between ourselves and the ultimate, and our ultimate self and the ultimate self. Literally always. So why can't I just think of that? Why don't I just think of that and just plug that idea in? Well, because every time we solve that problem, it's a new revelation. I can't just come to a song and plug that idea in and act like, okay, now it's going to tell the truth. That's not how creativity works. We've all heard songs that are like that sort of like jump to the conclusion, and it might even be the right conclusion, or might even be at least in the right ballpark. But the piece somehow leaps to the answer that it's all about God, or it's all about whatever, the divine. And it feels preachy and fake. And that doesn't work. It's because we preempted, we got to the answer we were trying to reach too soon. And on some level, it's like, we know that that's the answer. So why can't we just get there? Well, because you got to go through the creative process. You got to go all the way through the not knowing, and however much pain and, however much, whatever there might be that's uncomfortable that we may need to look at or experience on the way there, we haven't done that yet. We're not there yet. So our expression of the divine, our expression of the absolute, is going to be a stand-in for the real experience. It's going to be some kind of substitute, because we know that it's supposed to be eventually about, it's all about dissolving into the absolute. So can we just say that already? Well, you can, and it will sound cheesy and lame. Unless you wait for the right time to get there. And I think I'm sort of explaining this playfully. It's very hard to do, it's a kind of, it's an odyssey every time. Every creative piece is a new odyssey. It's a new process of getting lost, of hearing a call, getting lost, and being found. Every single piece is that. And that's it's just making me reflect on my own work now. But that's really the thing we got to be willing to do. We have to be willing to get lost. We got to be willing to get lost. If we're willing to get lost, then we will find ourselves being found, or we at least have the potential to find ourselves, to be found. But if we're not willing to get lost, we're just kind of playing with substitutes. So it's a nice lesson, really fun session, and a really great little epiphany at the end. Always nice when a creative session ends with opening and awakening. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a wonderful day. I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.